Now I can say it.
You just did.
Hello.
Listen to it tonight and see if you can. All right. If you're absent, we might say hi to you. Hopefully you watch the videos, because that's how you keep track. Real quick, though, I am trying to post them. I will probably post them on my YouTube channel. The link will be on the website. We'll talk about all that. But just in case you're like me, and you're like, I can't take time to watch the video. I'll just write the notes down. Whatever, I'll catch up if you're absent. Can you watch a video on YouTube in 1.5 speed?
Yeah.
The little setting wheel, you can change the speed to be like 1, 1.25, 1.5. If I'm taking a long time explaining something, you're like, psh, don't have time for this. Instead of turning off the video and just copying from the PDF, I would play the video just maybe at super quick speed to make sure that you don't lose or miss anything. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I definitely have done that quite a few times. I had to tutor somebody in stats last year, I took stats, kind of sat there, memorized a few things, and got an A in college. But I had to explain it. It was kind of rough. Definitely watched tons of stats videos on like double speed. Anyway, for some of you who are like me, how I talk in class, if you're absent, you don't want to watch 47 minutes of, then just double the speed, 1.5 speed, whatever your mind can keep track of. Please just watch the video.
I don't know how to do that.
Huh? You don't know how to do that?
It's just on the settings.
Just on the settings. It's a little dangerous just hitting the YouTube. Just wait. As a teacher, you should always know what's coming before you hit it.
Yeah, they really are.
Oh, the voice.
The voice.
I bought like 4 different packs.
That works.
This is my mom.
Okay, so if we're watching, and Hillary Clinton proves she's in good health. But anyway, okay, if we're watching something or others.
Something like
Oh, where is it? There it is. Why can't I
Okay,
skip the ad? Is that no longer a thing?
No, only certain ads.
I have ad blockers on.
Okay, either way.
It's really
Are you
false.
watching it?
It's probably a virus.
How you fix it?
You can go here.
Mistakes. They're not so scary.
Throw it on the
So lucky.
Speaking of rumors that have gotten started, there's now the new one is that you are unhealthy, that you had a concussion. And Keith Young was on Fox News yesterday and today, and saying you were sick, you were tired, etc., etc. Are you in good health?
Also, you can keep track with this
Well,
one.
this has become one of their themes. Here, you take my.
Right? Yeah, see, if we slow down this, some of you feel like this is that.
Oh, there's nothing there.
Nothing there.
1.5 speed.
Back in October, the National Enquirer said I would be dead in 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So with every breath I just.
I'm not gonna be able to take it serious.
Not take it.
Okay, are we good? Let's come back. All right, here we go. Cartesian plane, rectangular coordinate system. What are some things you're labeling? Ready, set, go. You should be able to see them. Which way do the quadrants go? Where do they start? Upper right-hand corner, right? 0 to 90 degrees, and then we go to 180, then 270, then 360, or, fun time, 0 to pi, 0 to pi over 2, pi over 2 to pi,
Yeah.
pi to 3 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi.
Let's go.
Not yet, but it's coming. Quadrants, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, counterclockwise starting in the upper right-hand corner, true? X-axis, hopefully we're good on that. Y-axis, hopefully we're good on that. Quick word to the Y's. Silly way of remembering it, but it's the way I do. Which way do the tick marks go on the X-axis? Vertically, right? If we have a line, X equals 1, for instance, what kind of line will that be? X-axis, 1, follow it. It's vertical. Quick way of remembering. Question, which way do the tick marks go on the y-axis? Horizontal. So what if instead of that one, what if we had y equals 1 as a line? Y, y-axis, 1, the 1 tick mark, follow it. Hey. Now you can do, well you guys should have had Mr. Shanks, right? No?
Amen.
Oh
You
boy.
would have been here 2 years ago.
I missed that man.
That's the
I missed that
job.
man.
You can do the whole Y can fly, right?
Yeah.
You can do that one. So you Y can fly,
Y can
Y
fly.
equals is a
Orange.
horizontal line, but orange, yeah. Giants.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're having another baby.
I'm so happy.
No
And every
way.
time they have a baby, the Giants win.
He talked about
Anyway,
pies
Mr. Strike's
like
kinda
every day.
Huh?
It's about
Making pies.
3.1415926. Okay,
I hope
so
he's not listening to it.
coming on back.
Since I don't know anymore.
You invited me to go eat, told me. Take your phone.
And you didn't take the opportunity.
Did he really? That's cool. He took a trip with who was it? Eric Hanna.
Let's so go.
There were like 4 guys that went to Utah with him, and they just went
Mormons.
to Brigham Young University, BYU, and just like went and knocked on doors. Yeah. He did it in college. So Mr. James did. I went to college with him. We were the same year. We went on a mission trip to Malaysia together. It was rough. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
No, it was a rough trip, but he did get his head shaved. But then the razor went out halfway, so then the other guy in the trip had to like. They were hard.
I just said
They were so
pulling hairs.
but it was good. God taught us a lot.
You want us to write plot the points?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, please, yes, please. Now, do you technically have to do example number 1, plotting points in the Cartesian plane? But you do need to at least say plot the points and then go do it. However, how can you make it easier once you go up to the Cartesian plane to plot it? Well, number 1, there's a lot going on, so maybe make your own Cartesian plane, right? You don't have to just do it in what I write. But then number 2, which is pretty typical of math books in general when it comes to graphing and plotting, instead of having to label a point, which you should always do, with the coordinates, which takes time, what else could we do? Assign, right? Hey, it's like, I don't know,
Oh, yeah.
using variables to shorten work. It's kind of what algebra is all about.
You're gonna use that to make segments?
Hmm?
You write in the A, B, C, D, because it's gonna be
Yeah,
useful
you
for
can.
segments?
Yeah, you can do that. Makes it a little bit faster. You're still associating which is which. I know, it's easy cheesy, and yet at some point in time, once you get to harder math, sometimes the easy math just gets hard. I have definitely in teaching, sometime in the last 2 or 3 years, definitely plotted a point wrong, won't lie. So you might too. If you haven't done it yet, go ahead, plot A, B, C, D, E. I'm gonna ask you what quadrants, in just a second, they lie in. Another quick word to the wise since we're going over logistics. If you're absent and if you're watching a video, say this one. And if you just quickly put down all the notes and then watch the video, this is gonna be really boring, like this lag time. But if you work through with it with the video, you're learning the same way the kids in class did. And sometimes it's better to work through math than just copy down answers to math. Good lesson for homework too. Okay. So, A, where is he? Quadrant 2, good. Tell me more about him.
He's floating a little. He's floating a little. What?
Oh, he said floating.
Yeah, that's true. Give me a little bit more specific detail. He is, in quadrant 2, he is floating a little.
Near the right.
To the,
His coordinates are -1 and 2.
okay, that's true. Explain that to me though.
Go to -1.
You go negative
Oh,
1.
Oh, you know
So
what?
-1, so go 1 to the left, not -1 to the left,
Oops,
because that
sorry,
would be like to the right. But, double negative. But 1 to the left and then,
You wanna talk about
Up
the
two.
up two? You can find.
Float
You
right
want?
there.
You don't need to know about the angle that you
Not yet.
found for it. Okay.
okay, 3, 4, although eventually, yeah.
It's
Letter B, quadrant 1.
pi over
It's
the
over
Over
3 and
three.
up 4.
Over 3, 2.
Over 3 to the right.
3 to the right,
4.
4 up. Thank you. He's not on there. Can we still graph him?
Totally.
Okay, don't forget. C.
It's just
Origin.
the-
Origin!
Origin.
Great way of explaining it. You could also say the middle. Origin's better. Letter D. Oops. Wait. Should have caught me. I didn't label it. Okay, D. Quadrant.
Well, it's borderline.
On the x-axis, in between quadrant 1 and 4, 3 to the right. Perfect. 3 to the right from the origin on the x-axis. That's great. Letter D. Letter E.
It's in quadrant.
Quadrant 3. How can you tell that real quick? Because both are negatives. X and Y coordinates are negatives. 2 to the left. 3 down. 2 to the left, 3 down. Look at you guys speaking math already on day number 1 of notes. Okay, next page. Pythag.
ourselves.
Pythag. Geometry. Mr. Shanks. Anyway, so. See it coming. How did we get on that? Oh, Y can fly, that's why. And his 3-dimensional coordinate system, like we made the entire room. Anyway.
Oh my god.
That was
Proof
crazy.
on the walls.
Yeah.
That guy.
I was like, okay, cool.
Okay, question. Pythagorean theorem applies to what kind of triangles, first of all?
Right triangle.
Right triangles. Where's the right angle? Well, if I say Pythag, it must be the one that makes sense. Now, geometry did teach you to never trust the
photo, the picture.
the picture, the photo, the
The
illustration, the diagram, the
Yes.
example, whatever. We're not going to be necessarily quite as precise, but we are going to use some of the labelings like congruent sides, like parallel lines, right angles, of course. We're going to use some of the notation. But in Precalc, just be aware of the context. Be aware of the context. It's not always explicitly shown in the figure. Pythagorean theorem, you have 2 legs, easy cheesy, right? Normally labeled A and B. Does it really matter which one's A, which one's B? No, we'll see why in a second. The hypotenuse, of course, is C. Pythagorean theorem gives us the basic leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. The reason why AB, the orientation, which one's which, doesn't really matter is because addition is commutative, no big deal. Now, does it matter if you switch up the leg and the hypotenuse?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. With Pythag, all we have to remember is solve for the unknown. Sometimes you're missing a leg, sometimes you're missing a hypotenuse. And as we get into trigonometry, sometimes you're missing an angle, or sometimes you're missing more than one side. Just be aware. Be aware. Distance formula. Doesn't really matter which point you assign, x1, y1, x2, y2.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Not
of the
really.
order.
Not
you,
really.
You have to do x2 and x1, y2, y1.
You have to do it in a certain order,
Yeah.
but technically the points could go either way. So there's no pressure in choosing, where some kids start to, bless you, have a few issues in Algebra 2, Precalc and beyond is when they have to do the labeling themselves. Usually in Algebra 1 geometry, a lot of labeling, naming is done for you. But just to be aware of the math. Now real quick, we could just write the distance formula, and some of you are like, ew, gross, yeah, I don't like that one, it has a huge square root. Which one comes first? Pause, slow down. Distance formula is really just finding a hypotenuse for a right triangle. Why? Because if I have one side of my triangle being a y value, remember, y's are horizontal, a subtraction of y values, which would be y2 minus y1, just subtract the 2. If that's 8 and that's 2, the distance would be 6. We would do that in our heads, just when there are variables involved, we start to get confused. And if we look at the other leg, which would be, remember, vertical or x values, x2 minus x1. Oh, I mislabeled it.
Yeah, it's x2,
Thank you,
x1.
thank you. But the first one was right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So technically, just by my picture, would be x1. And this might throw some of you for a loop because you're like, wait a minute, but I thought we couldn't switch things around. If we have one leg being the quantity x1 minus x2, one leg being the quantity y2 minus y1, and we're trying to find the hypotenuse, couldn't we just say b squared is equal to a squared plus b squared and guys, Pythag, how do we always solve for what we're missing if it's squared? Square root the whole thing. Now some of you are like, this is written wrong. One of them is x1 minus x2 and one of them is y2 minus y1. First of all, why is it oriented weirdly, strangely, interestingly? Because how am I doing my subtraction? Bigger minus smaller, bigger minus smaller? Just because of the way the points are. But why mathematically, for the distance formula, would it never matter how you do the subtraction? What's going to change if we accidentally did the smaller minus the bigger? The sign would be negative. And Brandon, what are you thinking?
When you square negatives.
Doesn't matter. So they both get squared anyway, no big deal. Now what formula does not get squared, and so the orientation is very important, whether it's y2 minus y1 or y1 minus y2?
Slope.
Slope formula. That one we have to keep super careful track of, and we've been doing that since Algebra 1. Technically not this one. You guys, if you can't see it already, you have 2 points down below. Let me zoom in so you can see it. Find me the distance. Ready? Set. And one of these days my projector will fit on my smartboard. Go. You can literally follow the formula to a T, or you can follow the idea. You can go graphically and make the triangle yourself. So many different approaches to an old formula that most of you are like, yeah, I can never remember that one. If you're visual, draw a picture. If you're good at holding on to formulas, just plug it in, plug it in. And if you're good at mental math, but as soon as it gets down to all the formulas, you're a little bit, you struggle a bit. Think of the idea.
Usually do you accept your answers in the square root, or you want it simplified?
If there is a square root in an algebraic, non-word problem format or context, the radical better be simplified but not a decimal. If it's in a word problem context, a decimal is sufficient.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Now I'm going to show you my thinking real quick. Not that it's necessarily the best. But I could go ahead and think of changing x squared, which would be 3 minus negative 2, 5, which would be 25. I could think of changing y squared. Remember, delta is changing. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 squared is 9. I can say my distance is equal to 25 plus 9. D is equal to the square root of 34.
Which you cannot simplify.
because it's only, if I think about
17
factoring trees, 2 and 17. 2 can't break down, 17 can't break down, therefore, dun 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 dun. Now, some of you, that's a little too much of the big idea without the formula. So hold on, what could be a step that you could have put in earlier? You could have gone ahead and done it. Now, this way was according to the picture up above. Technically, remember we talked it didn't really matter. Technically, it's a little bit more normal to see the x2 first and the x1 second, if you want to just keep it normal. But you would have gone ahead and chosen, maybe this one's x1, this one's y1, this one's x2, y2. You're not thinking about the picture, you're just thinking about this one comes first, comes second, first point, second point. You could have then done 3 minus -2, some of you might have messed that up a little bit, plus 4 minus 1. The question, doesn't this get to the exact same place?
Totally.
Minus a negative plus, 5 squared 25, 4 minus 1, 3, 3 squared 9. And just for those few of you that are visual, you could have gone your -2, +1, and graphed your point A, or your first point. You could have gone to your 3, 4, graphed your second point, and could have said, what's that distance? You could have gone ahead and figured out the change in heights, which would have been a 1, a 2, and a 3. Change in widths, which would have been a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 5. And you could have done Pythag. You could have gotten 25 plus 9 is 34. 34 square rooted would have been your distance. Depends on how your brain works as to which
You can
one.
only use the distance formula if you have a right triangle here. Oh, you're always going to have a right triangle.
Because horizontal and vertical will always meet at. Right? So depending on how your brain works, it might latch on to 1 out of the 3. It might latch on to all 3 out of the 3. The long story short is, hopefully you'll never forget it again. Midpoint formula. Yeah.
So this is a little off topic, but for when we flip the page, do you want the number on the left side or the right side?
On the, good question. On the outer side.
So like this.
Because that way when you and I, when we're flipping through, like you trying to look back at a previous topic, me when I'm grading, we can see it quick.
So like right here?
Yeah, good question. You guys catch that? When you turn the page, if you're writing on the back, keep the page numbers on the corners and not the inside. Does that make sense? Not by the binding, but out by the corners. It's way easier for us finding pages. Thanks, Kristen. Good question. Midpoint formula. Can anyone tell me, not the formula, but the idea behind the formula? Because this formula might be easier to remember, and some of you are like, nope, don't have this one either. That's okay. What's the idea behind the formula? Okay, lost. Sean.
I don't remember.
Just point out which halfway at which the two meet equally.
Okay, the idea behind the midpoint is I'm trying to find,
Is it the
the point
distance
that's
divided
halfway in
by
between
2?
each of the points on the distance line. Keep going.
The distance formula divided by 2, because then you...
No, because we have squares and square rooted. You kind of killed a puppy, but we'll talk about that later. Bad maths.
Okay, I'm upset. I don't care
What if
a
I
cat
ask
dies.
you? Huh?
I'm like Mr. Crawford. I'm upset about the puppy. I don't really care if a cat dies, though.
Okay, how about if you lose points? No you can't. Okay, so. Okay, come back. Question. How do you find the average of stuff? You have numeric data. How do you find the average? Add them all up and divide by? What's the midpoint formula? The average. Of what? Of 2 points. So if you have your x1, y1, and you have your x2, y2, you say, what is the average, if I can do it correctly, and let me do it actually with black and not red so that it's more official. Average the x's. How many x's do I have? 2 of them. Average the y's. How many y's do I have? 2 of them. Hopefully never forget again. Average the x's, average the y's. The sum, there are 2 of them, divide by 2. Ready, set, find me the midpoint of the bottom when you're ready. Strange in math, the higher you go, hopefully the better fundamental understanding of the math you grasp. And start to see patterns as to why things that you've been told are true are really true. Hardest class I took. One of the questions in there, why when you add a real number plus a real number is it still real? Not kidding. Crazy the proof for that one. Something so basic and yet the higher you go, the more you understand the reason why. Speaks to life too. Sometimes you can't know in the moment. Sometimes you have to wait and just trust. You'll figure out the why later, or maybe never, not until heaven. Good thing someone greater than us is in control, huh? Midpoint. How do we set it up? What are my 2 x's?
-5 and
Mm-hmm. Average it. What are my y's?
-2.
Since it's addition, does it really matter what order I go in? Nah. But, yeah, better safe than sorry. I tended to go the same direction. And we end up with 4 divided by 2, 0 divided by 2. My more visual ones, I guess you could have graphed, found the distance formula, cut it in half, and then figured out exactly how far over and up. That would have been a little rough, though. We've had to do an awful lot of right triangles and Pythagorean theorems. So, midpoint, what should you associate? Average. Distance formula, what should you associate? Pythag. Not that I'm going to necessarily ask that on a test or a quiz. We're just teaching your brain how to think. What? Who has your book? Give it out. Hopefully there's at least one per group. I don't necessarily say you have to bring it every single day, but there are always those ones that always want to be prepared. Hopefully at least one of you per group wants to always be prepared. I want to show you a few things about your book real quick. First of all, there are no exercise numbers on this page either. Okay, so pause. Think. Is there, in any of your travels of my website, is there any place that says homework sheets? Where's that at?
It's there.
We're the right one, or else we could have some issues, right? Okay. Now what?
Homework sheet.
Okay, hold on. You know what? This is a little annoying. Give me a second. Keep on telling you guys I'm going to do this, and then keep on not doing it. If I were you, I'd be annoying. What did I tell you I would do? Put a link to the class folder right there at the beginning. Some of you, though, should learn how to bookmark stuff. Life will be so much easier. However, for the time being, let's get this on here. Let's change that link. You guys. You could technically, yes, as you said, go to helpful links. That's all well and good. However, you could also now get shareable link. Here. Go ahead and change. Ha! Alright. So now, much more convenient, at least one button click fewer. Ha! There we go. Now that you're in the shared folder. Oh, that's a struggle. What happened? Alright, I'll figure it out. Helpful links! Hopefully this didn't delete your class folder. Where do we find homework sheets? Hey, that's a thing. Homework sheets. It's not the sheets I give you for homework, which I rarely do. Instead, it is the collection of, by chapter, problems that you have to work. Technically, couldn't you maybe take a screenshot at the beginning of the chapter and just have it to reference for the rest of the time?
Yeah, you can.
You could also save it to, like, I don't know if you have an iPhone to your, what is it, books app? You can save PDFs. Either way, though. The only time you have to worry about the numbers is when I say something like, I'm changing the homework online, and you're like, oh. Then you'll have to actually look it up. But some of you will just look it up every night, and it is what it is, it's fine. Our homework for section 1.1, homework number 1, this is how you're going to title it on your paper. Wait a minute, what paper?
The one we're getting.
Normally in math classes, where do you do your homework? Loose leaf paper, right? No big deal. What happens, wait, I'm not done, you think you know what I'm going to say, but you don't. What happens when you are 1-2 months into school, not super organized, and I ask you to, or you look on RunWeb and say, a homework is missing, and it's not supposed to be missing because you did it, and you can't find it. Or you have to look through your entire book and all the different papers that are in your book, ruining your book right now. Or like in the book cover, like stuffed in there, and then they're all falling out. Or you just can't find it at all. It gets a little rough, right? All those loose leaf papers. Where's your spiral? I want you to open your spiral. And just as a quick reminder, on the very first page of your spiral, hopefully your name gets on it at some point too, using a Sharpie preferably. At the very top of the first page of your spiral, I want you to put on the right-hand corner, very top, first page, open the cover, homework. Page. Although I guess you could do cover, but either way. Homework. Why? Because we're going to keep it in the spiral and not everyone just want to not have to ruin our books by putting papers into it. Now some of you are like, wait, I have to remember to take home my spiral. Yes. What else do I want you to remember to take home every night? Why? What's the purpose of notes? To reference them. Yes. Have you looked into your helpful links folder? Last year didn't have this because I couldn't find it, but the book is getting a little older, so it's a little bit nicer. Online textbook in its entirety. Helpful. It just takes a while to load because for some reason the internet's really bad. Look, wait while loading. Okay. Anyways, now if you want to get oriented real fast, since we have a couple extra seconds, turn to the back of your spiral. Turn to the back of your spiral. The very last page, let's pretend this is my spiral. It's not, so let's pretend. If you're left-handed, you're going to love it, because I'm going to put classwork. If you're right-handed, you might hate it, so you could, if you want to, go upside down, then you'll love it, because it's nicer now. And you can put classwork. Any warm-ups we do, any classworks we do, any group explorations that we don't necessarily want to put in our notes, we're going to do working backwards, homework working forwards. You can use a notebook for 2 purposes, keeping track of 2 different things. Pretty neat. Wow. But anyway, we don't have any classwork, we don't have any warm-ups right now. But just as a heads up, your spiral is going to be very useful this year. So, homework number 1, where are you putting it?
Spiral.
Pencil pouch is nice though.
So this, the first page.
So how are you going to do it? Technically you can put name, period, group number, etc., every single page. Or just put it on your notebook, and then whenever I check your notebook, you're good to go. I want still, though, the heading as far as, you don't have to put assignment, you can do what I don't do it up there. Struggle. Sometimes I do referencing, homework number 1, like on RunWeb or Google Calendar. Homework number 1, you're going to put section 1.1, however you want to do it. And then you're going to put the page and the assignment, okay? I do want the assignment title, but as long as it is solid in your spiral and your name is on your spiral with your period, you're good to go. You won't have to worry about it. Trina. It is online. Shared folder, homework sheets. Is that good? Okay. Yeah. Yes, please. Bye, guys. We're done with 1.1.